every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities.
Just their posture coming down, what the emotions might be. Has to be surreal.
Yes. And while all this is happening, the platform filling up with members, the president-elect waiting somewhere inside the Capitol. If you can imagine folks being backstage before a big performance.
Well, it's 12 midnight in Manila, 11 in the morning in Washington, D.C., and in an hour, we expect Joseph Robinette Biden to take his oath as the
incoming Vice President.
Yes, as the new
Kamala
President
Harris.
and Vice President of the United States.
So,
now,
why are we covering this, Ed?
well, we don't normally have a special coverage for an inauguration halfway around the world, but events in the last 2 weeks, I would say would require us to have some sort of special coverage.
Later on, we'll be talking to experts and also people who've been studying the relationships between the two countries, and we will find out what's at stake for our country in this transition.
Because we are looking at anywhere from 2 to 3 million Filipino Americans in the United States. And a divided nation, the U.S. in particular, would have an impact on them, and as well an impact on Filipinos here with issues like the West Philippine Sea and human rights, and as well China. The issue of China is always front and center.
Yes, we opened this coverage with some images from Washington, D.C., where the 59th inaugural ceremony is now ongoing, meaning the VIPs are already arriving at least one by one, or at least by sets.
Well, normally the outgoing president would be would be meeting the incoming president of the United States at the Capitol, but we're not having that anymore.
No,
today.
because Trump already left for Florida about 2 hours ago.
Well, technically, he's still the president
Yes.
of the United States until Joe Biden takes his oath of office at noon Washington, D.C. time. So there, we are now just minutes away from U.S. President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration. And with the coronavirus pandemic still around, Bloomberg Quick Takes Tashin Rabi explains why this inauguration might just go down in history as the most unusual the U.S. or maybe even the world has ever seen.
Joe Biden will be taking office as the 46th President of the United States of America on January 20th. Here are 5 reasons why this might be the most out of the ordinary presidential inauguration. 1. President Trump says he won't attend the inauguration. This isn't the first time a president hasn't attended his successor's inauguration, but it's definitely still unusual. The last U.S. president not to attend his successor's inauguration was Richard Nixon, who resigned following the Watergate scandal and left Washington before Gerald Ford took the oath of office. The last president to miss a regularly scheduled inauguration following an election was Woodrow Wilson, who skipped Warren G. Harding's 1921 ceremony due to health concerns. Other presidents have skipped their successors' inaugurations over political grievance, but not in recent history. John Adams declined to attend the inauguration of Thomas Jefferson after the contested election of 1800. And Andrew Jackson, who, like Trump, was impeached by the House but escaped conviction by the Senate, didn't attend the ceremony for President Ulysses S. Grant. 2. Say goodbye to the traditional festivities. Due to the pandemic, this year, the Biden team is replacing the traditional inaugural balls that have been a fixture in Washington's social scene for centuries with at-home entertainment. Tom Hanks will be hosting the 90-minute special called Celebrating America. It will air on major broadcast networks and streaming services on Wednesday. Some famous faces will be performing, like Lady Gaga, Jennifer Lopez, Demi Lovato, Justin Timberlake, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and Bon Jovi. We're also saying goodbye to the inaugural parade. Where there used to be an inaugural parade that stretched from the U.S. Capitol to the White House, now President-elect Joe Biden will receive a shortened military escort to the White House. The event will be featured on television called Virtual Parade Across America, featuring musical acts, marching bands, poetry, dance troupes, and essential workers. 3. Security will be extremely high. More than 25,000 law enforcement, military, and intelligence personnel will be present during the inauguration over fears that violent extremist groups are targeting the city after the deadly insurrection on January 6th. The threats range from armed insurgents to possible attempts to plant explosive devices. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi also laid down some new rules. She will impose $5,000 to $10,000 fines for representatives who violate security screening rules. 4. There's a lot of things that will be shut down. Washington is shutting down 13 subway stations in the nation's capital, and 26 bus routes will be retoured. The federal aviation regulations are cracking down too. They said they will forego the usual warning given to violators that prohibit interference with airline flight crew and move directly to seek penalties.
Now, I want to be very clear about what this means. It means that if you disrupt a flight with threatening, intimidating, or violent behavior, you'll face a civil penalty from the FAA of up to $35,000 and possible imprisonment as well.
Airbnb is canceling all reservations during the week of the inauguration. So far, they've pulled around 5,500 DC bookings. Guests will be refunded in full, and the hosts will be reimbursed for the money they would have earned. Monuments will also be shut down. 5. Presidential letter. It is a tradition that started with Ronald Reagan, who wrote a personal note for George H.W. Bush before he left office. Ever since, the outgoing president has left a handwritten letter for the incoming president. In 1993, Bush wrote Clinton a note saying, "Your success now is our country's success. I am rooting hard for you." In 2016, Obama told Trump, "Regardless of the push and pull of daily politics, it is up to us to leave those instruments of our democracy at least as strong as we have found them." The question is, whether President Trump will also leave a letter for Joe Biden this year.
I heard there will be no letters for Biden from Trump. But anyway, we won't be seeing Trump during today's event. But we've already seen about minutes ago or 15 minutes ago the entrance of the former presidents. We saw former President Bill Clinton, former President George W. Bush, and of course, former President Barack Obama.
And
So,
quite an unusual setup today there in Washington. The usual crowds that you would have gathering at the
Yes.
National Mall to watch the inauguration, they're not there.
They're not there. We saw a wide shot of that area
Yeah.
a while
You know
ago
what
before
they-
we went on air.
What they put there instead in the National Mall, they planted 200,000 American flags where the crowd would have stood.
Also canceled were the traditional balls celebrating a new administration and the parade. There will be no parade.
And as you heard, the U.S. Capitol is on lockdown with 25,000 National Guardsmen and a few specialized military units to make sure that nothing goes wrong.
Okay, but Ed, here's a rundown of what else to expect in today's ceremony. The program will begin at around 11 a.m. U.S. time or 12 midnight here in the Philippines. A longtime friend of the Biden family and American Jesuit Catholic priest Father Leo J. O'Donovan will give the invocation. Andrea Hall, a Georgia firefighter, will then lead the Pledge of Alliance. Lady Gaga, who campaigned for Biden, so
I think it's a Pledge of Allegiance.
I think so. Sorry for that blooper. But some more tidbits or information. We will have pop stars Jennifer Lopez and Lady Gaga doing some musical performance there. And Tom Hanks will host the primetime show called Celebrating America, which will feature remarks from Biden and Harris and performances representing the rich diversity and extensive talent of the Americans. Incoming President Joe Biden will be sworn in by John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, at by midday, actually.
That's 1 a.m. Manila time.
While Vice President Kamala Harris will be sworn in by Justice Sonia Sotomayor before noon. Okay, some more information. Outgoing President Donald Trump has departed the White House riding the Air Force One with First Lady Melania Trump. They are both headed to their home in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Trump delivered his farewell remarks pledging that he will be back in some form.
Back in some form.
We'll ask some of our experts later kung ano ang tingin nila dyan. Ano. He wished the new administration well, but suggested he would deserve credit for any of its economic accomplishments. Trump is also said to have left a note for Biden despite bucking most traditional roles a president fills during the transition. Presidents usually leave a note of congratulations and support in the Oval Office. So there's a letter, contrary to the initial report.
Okay, Biden plans to go all out in his COVID-19 response as early as his first day in the White House. We will talk about this development with One News consultant Patrick Paez and defense editor Manny Magato. Hello, gentlemen. Oh, there you are.
Good evening. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
Okay, I suppose we should backtrack a bit and explain why we are doing this special coverage, why we are talking to Philippine Americans as well as Filipinos
I think
here in
Patrick
Manila.
will be able to answer that because he planned all of this.
Okay. Why are we up at midnight Manila time to cover the U.S. election for the U.S. inauguration day? I guess it's very important this stage now. We're in a big transition. We all know how the Philippines fared during the Trump years. I think there have been several significant developments during that period. Given how polarized things are, we just want to know from our experts, our real experts on board, whether things will have a marked change, if there will be a significant change in policy, given that the president that they're inaugurating today is an antithesis of the previous one.
I think it's worth pointing out that the first months of the Trump presidency, the first months of the Duterte presidency, we were dealing with Trump's predecessor,
Yes.
Barack Obama, and that was a very colorful first few months.
Yes, I think there were some names. There were some name callings that happened during those first years of the Duterte presidency.
I think the first few days of this new administration will take a serious tone, or because the actions they will be focusing on will be about the COVID situation in that country, but also the effect of that COVID situation there in our shores.
But also to localize things a bit, we would also want to talk about certain issues that have dealings with us directly here
Yes.
in the Philippines, in Manila. Like, for example, would the issue of human rights still be front and center as it was the last time a Democrat was in charge of the White House? We're talking, of course, about Barack Obama and his friction with President Duterte. As well, issues about the West Philippine Sea. Joe Biden has been repeatedly painted by Donald Trump as pro-China and pro-Iran. So what will we see with Joe Biden in the White House?
Ed, you raised an issue a while ago in some of our other programs about the appointment of a certain person that will affect that issue.
Yes, I think it was Kurt Campbell who was appointed by Joseph Biden as the Asia Czar in his National Security Council. Mr. Campbell, I understand, was also the one who brokered the deal for Scarborough Shoal in 2012, which we eventually lost.
Tito Manny.
Joe Biden appointed Kurt Campbell, who is the architect of Pivot to Asia policy of Barack Obama in 2013. So it's very interesting to know what will happen in the region under Biden, under the stewardship of Kurt Campbell. But I think one thing is very certain, no? The U.S. security and economic interests will be constant. It will remain the same, the dominance in the region. However, Campbell has other strategies and maybe tactics on how to maintain that dominance. And he has different sets of policies. For instance, in engaging China, Trump in the last 4 years has tried to cancel and ignore China and consider China as a rival and as a competitor. But maybe under President Joe Biden, and because of Kurt Campbell's direction, he will be bringing in China to the international decision making. That means he will be more inclusive, and he will try to bring in China into dialogue, especially that China has recently formed a big trading bloc in Asia Pacific, the Regional Cooperation and Economic Partnership.
But Manibogs, I suppose the question on everybody's mind is whether or not Joe Biden will still be as confrontational with China as Donald Trump was, or will he be more engaging with China, and how that augurs for us in the Philippines?
Well, the friction between U.S. and China will still be there. Recently, the intelligence appointee of President Biden has already considered China as a threat. So I think the Americans under Biden will continue to regard China as a rival. So the situation will remain the same. But
Okay.
There will be differences because, for instance, Joe Biden wanted to disperse U.S. forces in the region, unlike Trump, who has concentrated forces in Guam, in South Korea, and Japan. So there will be differences, but the interest of the U.S. as far as security is concerned will be the same.
Okay, Manibogs, sorry, I have to break in. We are now seeing images or pictures of President-elect Joe Biden arriving at the Capitol. What time is it now? It is now 12:17 in the morning in Manila, so it should be 11:17 in Washington, D.C. We do expect the oath-taking to take place traditionally it's at 12 noon.
Actually, Ed, about 30 or 45 minutes ago, we already saw the incoming leaders of America in their holding place near they call it the the East Front Stairs
Okay.
of that.
It's not like I know where these places are.
Siyempre, sinasabi ko no, dahil kapag nag-tour ka dyan sa US Capitol, usually yun ang sinasabi. They usually hold they usually do the inauguration at the East Front Stairs, but now they're doing it at the West Front, where the visuals are better.
Yeah. We'll take note that this is the same place where rioters broke into the Capitol.
Yes.
Exactly 2 weeks ago. That was January 6th, exactly 2 weeks ago. Well, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same room. These are exactly the same rooms, but it is the same building that we are talking about here, the U.S. Capitol.
Okay. So while we're waiting for the other arrivals at the West Front, we will go back to Manny and Patrick. I just want to open up the conversation about the first 17 executive actions that this incoming president will be implementing as soon as the inauguration rites are over.
Which would have an impact on Phil-Americans,
Exactly.
especially those who are still waiting for the visa.
So that's one. Now, about the COVID situation, I think the first thing that will make a mark will be the
100 days.
the mask thing.
The 100 days masking. Yeah. Biden is requiring Americans to wear masks for 100 days in federal property.
Yes.
That's for 100 days. We don't know what the compliance will be, considering that there's a sizable resistance to mask wearing in the United States.
Okay.
So that may be a bit of a confrontational thing.
We will still have Manny and Patrick during this conversation or segment, but we have another guest, Ed.
Okay, let's bring in our other guest. Let's now welcome De La Salle University International Studies Professor Renato De Castro. Good, what is it? Good morning, sir.
How are you doing?
Good morning, sir. Well, thank you for staying with us. We know
Sure.
you'd probably prefer to be
To be
watching
sleeping
Netflix
or
already.
watching it, yeah.
But I'm sure you've been following what's been happening, not just in the last 2 weeks, but as well in the last 4 years, and what it means
Sure.
to Filipinos and Phil-Americans. What do you think? What do you think? You have a pretty divided nation. You're looking at what? 46% of Americans who voted for Trump in the last elections, and Trump has not explicitly said that he lost. I think he still
Yes.
maintains that he won. So what does that mean for America, and what does that mean for us?
Right now you have historical parallelism being mentioned. Like they're equating the situation to 1860, the eve of the American Civil War, where the United States was really divided when President Abraham Lincoln got elected. And of course, by the time that he was inaugurated the following year, you have the beginning of secession.
By the
When
Confederate
states like South Carolina, Arkansas, Georgia, North Carolina already declared their secession. So I've also noticed a number of American analysts and academics who are talking about possibility of breakups.
Are we
Like
looking
they're
at
looking
that?
at Yugoslavia, Spain before the Second World War. So this is really very, apparent. The fact that a number of American analysts and security officials basically said, the threat that's facing the United States, at this point in time, might not be Russia or China, but domestic
From within.
insurrection.
Is that a possibility or a probability from your point of view?
We don't know. We don't know simply because it's really deep. And you know what happened? The division has been there. The cleavage has been there since, of course, the 1990s. Remember, even before you have 9/11, the most horrible terrorist attack in the United States was domestic. Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma bombing.
That's before, of course, 9/11. So it's been there. And what basically happened in the last 4 years is that this has been stoked by a president who his former defense secretary, James Mattis, said,
Mad Dog
presidents
Mattis.
in the past have tried to unite the country. This is the only president that had made sure that the country, that the division becomes deeper and wider.
Well-
So we have no one to blame but the outgoing president.
Okay. Well,
For
we
this-
saw Donald Trump ride Air Force One going to Florida, Mar-a-Lago. Are we seeing the last of him in politics? Do you think, or
I
is
hope
he
so.
going to
I
stay
hope,
on?
honestly, for the sake of, the United States is important, not only because it's our only strategic ally, it's a global power. We're watching the inauguration because we're watching the inauguration of the president of the only superpower in the world.
But here's a quote.
But
Here's a
China
quote.
may disagree with you on that.
No, China's not yet a superpower. That's a joke. China has not yet won a major war.
Oh, that's
The
true.
measurement of a superpower is the one that
winning
won
of-
a
yeah.
major war. China has not won a single war. The last major conflict that China engaged was Vietnam, in 1979.
And it
China
lost.
suffered 50,000 casualties against Vietnam. So, of course, China has the second largest economy. It's building a massive military capability. But one thing is sure, it has not been tested.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to go back to Ed's question. Will we be seeing the last of Trump? Here's the quote from his farewell speech before he went to Mar-a-Lago. He said, "We will be back in some form."
In some form.
In some form.
Manny, natawa ka.
Reality show siguro. I think he will have a grand TV comeback.
Are we
but,
sure it's a TV comeback?
Now he's not anymore the president. He has less security. The Secret Service is not anymore there. And remember who threatened him recently? Because of what happened last year. Iran.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So Iran said,
The
"We will
assassination of
avenge
General
the death of Soleimani."
Soleimani.
And he was basically, he was the one who signed the executive order for the execution of Soleimani. So, again, they have a lot of unknowns, especially for outgoing President Donald Trump. Of course, you'll be facing impeachment. You'll have a lot of cases. But, again, you have this threat by, a major power in the Middle East.
Okay, so can we bring in Patrick Paes and to give us his view? Will we be seeing Trump lesser, or will we be seeing a comeback on television?
Well, I think the idea that they want him impeached, well, he has been impeached, that they want him
Convicted.
Convicted is because they don't want to see him back in 4 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess suffice to say that that's the whole point of this impeachment in this trial.
But there is a legal question that I'm not sure if it's already been resolved or answered. Is it still possible to try and try to convict a former president following his impeachment when he is no longer in office, and you're talking about a different Congress altogether?
Ed, in the U.S. Under U.S. law, when you impeach a leader, there are two ways why he is being impeached. One is removing him from power, and one is giving him no chance to return to power. So what I think the U.S. Senate will do is try to convict him so that he cannot run again for president.
Well, I raise that question because it might become a legal question that will go all the way up to the Supreme Court. I mean, if that happened in the Philippines...
When it comes to
yes, sir.
impeachment, the Supreme Court will not be involved.
Yes, sir. But
This will be basically a legislative initiative, and it will not just be a legal issue, it will be a political issue.
yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, because it is a
Remember, of
numbers
course,
issue.
Before he could be convicted, the Democrats need 17 Republican senators who would vote for his conviction.
Yes, sir.
Will they get that 17 senators?
Yes, sir.
So that's not just legal, it's also political.
Yes, sir. Well, I see your point. It is a numbers game. It always is a numbers
Yes.
game when you talk about impeachment and trial and conviction. But I say it might become a legal point if somebody questions the process in the Supreme Court, or whether or not
No,
the next
when
Congress
it comes to
can...
impeachment, it's just it's a ball game of the Congress.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand the separation of power. So this is really the prerogative of Congress, not the Supreme Court. Well, you have the judge, probably Supreme Court judge, just like what we had here,
Like we had,
in terms of the proceedings. But
during the era of impeachment.
no, this is primarily a congressional initiative. This is a game. This is prerogative of the legislative.
Yeah.
The judiciary is out of the picture when it comes to impeachment.
Well, Ed, some of President Trump's advisors and supporters have already questioned whether the Senate can convict him because he's no longer the president.
And it's a
But-
different Senate altogether. I mean, a different Congress altogether.
and
That will be the decision of the Senate.
but I think the present leadership of Congress are really bent on trying Trump and have him convicted.
So we're talking about the incoming.
Incoming.
The incoming
leader.
Senate.
Because the trial will begin on the first day after the inauguration of Biden.
Professor, let me throw you a question that we threw Manny Magoto just a while ago.
Sure.
Remember in 2016, human rights was a big issue between the Philippines and the U.S., especially with Obama and President Duterte. Now you have a Democrat back in office, back in the White House. Is this going to be a ticklish issue again?
Definitely. Incoming President Biden already announced human rights is a very important issue. Then now you have the Congress being controlled by the Democrats, both the House and the Senate. So human rights issue will be very, it will be a sort of one of the issues that this administration would be raising, and we already see how it started criticizing China on the issue of the Uyghurs. As much as possible, the Trump administration tries to avoid raising the human rights issue vis-a-vis China, because for the Trump administration, this is a classic geopolitical game. But for the Biden administration, they have already indicated, no, we will add more fuel to the fire because human rights issue will now be included in the agenda. No less the incoming Secretary of State is really also bent on raising the human rights issue.
So what does that mean for us?
Professor De Castro, I have a follow-up question to
Sure,
that,
sir.
if I may. Now, I was just wondering how the strategic interest of the strategic U.S. defense interest in the Philippines will it in some way hedge in or restrain the U.S. administration or the Biden administration as far as pushing on the human rights issues
I think
concerned?
they will push. Remember, sir, many of the people in the Biden administration were with the Obama administration.
Yeah.
They still remember that, that incident that happened in Laos in 2016.
Yeah.
Kurt Campbell, Blinkley, no, they were there. Even, of course, Barack Obama was Joe Biden's boss. He was the vice president.
So are we going to see fireworks again?
Different situation now. When that incident happened, of course, President Barack Obama was a lame duck president.
Uh-huh.
Now it's the other way around.
That's a very good point.
Good point. That's a good point.
And Ed, what is in
Money
danger
works.
here? What is in danger here is the military assistance program of the United States, because under Trump, we got a lot of equipment from U.S., especially in the last 2 months of President Trump. We got more than $60 million of hardware from the Americans. But under Biden, I guess we will have some cut down because of human rights situation in the Philippines.
My point, my thinking there is that because precisely of the U.S. defense interest in the region, is they might just decide to, pardon me, Professor, they might just
Yes, sir.
decide to keep those military assistance going to the Philippines, while at the same time maybe admittedly pressing on human rights.
Or adopt what you call the Franklin Roosevelt formula with Somoza in the 1930s. You remember this? He might be a son. Yeah, he might be a son of a bitch.
But he's
But
our
he's our
son of a
son of a bitch. But I doubt it if that will be adopted by this administration. Honestly, that was a policy basically of President Trump basically adopted what he called a transactional. It's between you and me. I like you, what's the name? Rodrigo, when they met in Vietnam. So for Donald Trump, this alliance is a matter of our transactional relationship as two presidents who like each other and of course who have populist tendencies. But this Biden administration is looking at it from the perspective of the United States, along with its interests, strategic competition with China, but of course balancing it with values, moral politics, human rights, rule of law, and how loyal are you as an American ally if you're cutting a deal with our strategic competitor?
Yeah, that's right. And if you remember, there are already some senators who have filed a resolution to cut down military aid to the Philippines because of the detention of Laila de Lima, Senator de Lima, and because of the killings related to drug war.
Well, remember that the VFA suspension was only suspended, so it could still push through, depending, of course, on Manila. I suppose you can say the same thing about Bato de Rosa's visa. It could still get cancelled anytime.
You see, now this will be the task of the diplomats. Our ambassador in Washington, D.C., Secretary Locsin. Unfortunately, we don't have a ambassador at this point in time. Ambassador Sung Kim just left a year ago. So, and I doubt if we'll have an American ambassador here. Probably the latest would be later this year. But I think this is already sending some signals. And the fact that, again, going back to 2016, immediately, by December, President-elect Donald Trump already made a phone call to President Duterte, assuring him that, we'll try to cut a deal. You're important to us. But I haven't heard President-elect Biden making that call.
Gentlemen,
President Duterte.
gentlemen, we're not letting you go just yet, but we need to tell our viewers that they're seeing some images from
Sure.
Washington D.C. The program already started, and Father Leo J. O'Donovan, a former Georgetown University president, already gave the invocation. So it's underway.
Remember,
We'll be-
Joe Biden will be the second U.S. president who is a Catholic after JFK.
So we're around 20 minutes away from the actual oath taking or swearing. The
Oath-taking.
actual oath taking. Okay. So we're just saying that we're showing you in our inset some of the things happening at the U.S. Capitol. Okay. And let's go back to our guests.
What about, for example, Professor, the West Philippine Sea and the freedom of navigation sorties by the U.S. Navy there? Is it? Do you think it's going to change anytime soon in a major way with Joe Biden in charge?
Yes, the Biden administration would emphasize international law. You know, the arbitral ruling. And of course, the policy of the Biden administration now is to bring in other American allies, not only in Asia, but also in Europe.
Yeah.
NATO.
To make
So,
it more
and,
multilateral, a more multilateral approach.
Really multilateral. And again, the point here is this is adding more fuel to the fire. As you have, of course, NATO allies started coming in. Britain will be sending its only carrier here, France, Germany, because part of the policy of the incoming Biden administration is to mend its fences with NATO. Donald Trump really antagonized NATO. You know, he told NATO in Brussels, member states of NATO is obsolete.
Yeah, and he told them to pay up.
Yeah, pay up and cutting a deal with Russia. One possible implication of President Biden's efforts to mend fences with NATO is that you will have active participation out of theater operation by NATO member states.
Well, that would be fascinating. Would NATO
Yes.
really be interested in having a foot in the West Philippine Sea?
Germany and France already came out with this is a sort of a code word for the strategic competition, Indo-Pacific. So you just take note. The members of the Quad, the United States, India, Japan, and of course Australia, have their version of what they call the Indo-Pacific. France and Germany and Britain earlier have already come out with their own versions of what they call the Indo-Pacific.
Gentlemen,
strategy.
again, I'm holding this conversation.
Somebody-
just a
somebody
few
singing.
moments,
Is that
because
Madonna?
Lady Gaga is already
Okay.
singing the national anthem.
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and o'er the walls we heard, our glorious flag fly. O'er the ramparts we watched, and
Okay, that was Lady Gaga. It was not Madonna. Sorry, difference in generations there. And sir, she was dressed normally, well, except for the.
That's her usual style.
Okay,
It's this.
I mean she was dressed normally for the top, but
Yeah. Okay, Ed.
well, we will get back to you, gentlemen, in a few minutes. We are just pausing for a quick break. Our special coverage on the Biden-Harris Inauguration Day will be right back, so please stay with us. And welcome back to this special coverage of the U.S. Inauguration of incoming President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This is, of course, our special coverage on the Biden-Harris inauguration.
Okay, we are
We're seeing
at the
pictures
point
now.
where incoming Vice President Harris will be sworn in as the Vice President
raise
by
your
U.S.
right
Supreme
hand
Court Associate
and repeat
Justice
after me.
Sonia Sotomayor.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right.
Of the United States. And since she's also the first U.S. Vice President of Asian descent, mixed Asian descent, and African descent.
I know that our guests are still with us, but we have to wait because I think it will be kind of quick, and the next one will be the
Should be,
oath-taking
yeah.
of the president.
Okay, what does the future hold for the roughly 2 million Filipinos, some say 3 million Filipinos in the U.S. under the incoming Biden administration? And joining us this morning are Jan Argy Tolentino, a former political science professor in PUP, now residing
In
in
California.
California. With him are Jonathan Melegrito of the National Federation of Philippine American Associations, and of course, again, Noel Malvar, a Philippine American senior researcher for the U.S. think tank More in Common. Oh, here we are. Hello and good morning. I understand it's...
I can think of few Christies.
Palanan, Palaanan.
Okay, we're hearing Patrick there, but we have in front of us Noel. She's your guest a while ago,
Yes,
right?
in the Chiefs. Well, let's start off with that. We were talking a while ago about what could happen or what could be the impact of the Biden presidency on Filipino Americans in the U.S. I actually want to ask both of you this question because you are there, and well, like it or not, in the last survey, a third of the Filipinos there in the U.S. Said they were voting for Trump. So with what happened 2 weeks ago and what is happening now, what do you think? What do you think Filipinos are thinking there? Anybody? Noel, if you want to start.
Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, so one of the legislative initiative ni President Biden when he assumes the presidency this afternoon is an immigration bill. And this is an immigration bill that has been long due. There was supposedly a bipartisan effort both from the Democrats and the Republicans during the time of Obama. But walang nangyari. But itong ipapanukalang batas ni President Joe Biden would be a path to citizenship for 10 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. So
Wait, Jan,
nila, there's about
of that number, ilan yung Pilipino?
of that number, approximately about a million of the Filipinos are undocumented.
Undocumented,
from what we know.
Whoa.
So, lalabas na parang there's about 5-year path for a temporary green card and then 3-year path. So parang 8 years for a full citizenship dito sa mga nandito na. Bukod pa doon sa mga alam natin yung mga DACA recipients and then refugees and mga TPS ng US. So it's one big effort on the part of Joe Biden to, alam mo yun, Donald Trump won on this exact
that same issue.
Platform, di ba, yung immigration issue on the start of his presidency. His strategy was to build a wall. Joe Biden's strategy will build a bridge towards these 11 million people. So I think it's laudable. Mahirap gawin because of the politics now in the United States. And but at least there's an effort from the part of Joe Biden.
But John, let me ask you this: Trump won with that issue. And it looks like Biden apparently won at least partially with that same issue, but they're two opposite points of view of that issue. So do you think there was any change in the mindset of voters or what? Nagbago ba ang mga botante ang kanilang pag-iisip, ang kanilang pananaw dun sa immigration o hindi naman?
No, I think immigration wasn't really the core issue on the 2020 campaign. I mean, alam natin, it was the pandemic, it was somehow yung temperament or ni Trump as a president, his competence. So somehow it was sidelined. But during the Obama years, it was the healthcare and immigration who Joe Biden and Obama wanted to fix.
Okay.
But alam natin, well, once Obamacare was signed into law, they lost the election immediately on the first midterm ni Obama. So it was really difficult. It was really difficult to enact immigration reform. But right now,
John?
the House of Representatives and the Senate are both
John?
under...
John, sorry,
John.
we have to break in. The oath taking is about to start. So sorry, we'll just have to pause for a bit.
We will return and we'll give you some more time to give that explanation, John. But right now, we are awaiting the actual oath taking of incoming President
Please raise
Joe
your
Biden.
right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Joe Biden is now President of the United States.
And he was sworn in by Chief Justice John Roberts.
Okay, Jan, let's go back to you, at least before his inaugural speech is given. But in this case, so immigration could still remain to be a touchy issue, a flashpoint issue in future elections.
Yes, in fact, yesterday when Congress assumed session, nagsimula na yung mga confirmation ng mga secretary-designate ni Biden, ni Joe Biden. And one of them is Secretary Mayorkas of the Department of Homeland Security. And it's important because of the domestic, of the insurrection that we saw and the threats to the U.S. And DHS is also in charge of Border Patrol. And yet, this question on immigration, because it was the first legislative effort that the Biden-Harris administration announced, was to reform immigration. Mayorkas was asked by Senator Josh Hawley, asking, ano bang position mo dito sa border wall? Are you going to tear it down? And of course, you saw the news, there are a caravan of immigrants from Guatemala na paparating uli dito. So they're saying, baka itong sinasabi ni Joe Biden, because wala na si Donald Trump, is there will be a new wave of caravans of immigrants coming from Latin America. So it's still a thorny issue, and
a moment we have all been waiting for.
So
it is now my great privilege and high honor to be the first person.
Okay, we'll take a break for a while lang while we listen to the inaugural address, but I'll go back to Noel when we come back. Just a minute.
My fellow Americans, a moment we have all been waiting for. It is now my great privilege and high honor to be the first person to officially introduce the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, Jr.
Chief Justice Roberts, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Leader McConnell, Vice President Pence, and my distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. This is America's day. This is democracy's day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart, and I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken, the oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we the people who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country. It's taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can overcome the deadly virus. We can reward work and rebuild the middle class and make health care secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal, and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge, and unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America. If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever, ever, ever failed in America when we've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh, all of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Here we stand across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us. To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Hear me out as we move forward. Take a measure of me and my heart. And if you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy. That's America. The right to dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth. Recent weeks and months have taught us a painful lesson. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders. Leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay at bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you, I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts, if we show a little tolerance and humility, and if we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand. There are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. That's what we do for one another. And if we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future. And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise you this, as the Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And we'll lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. We'll be a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all of those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and co-workers. We'll honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. So I ask you, let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country. Amen. Folks, this is a time of testing. We face an attack on our democracy and on truth, a raging virus, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis, America's role in the world. Any one of these would be enough to challenge us in profound ways. But the fact is, we face them all at once, presenting this nation with one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for boldness, for there's so much to do. And this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story. A story that might sound something like a song that means a lot to me. It's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least for me, and it goes like this. The work and prayers of century have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, then when our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best, they did their duty, they healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close the day where I began, with the sacred oath. Before God and all of you, I give you my word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution. I'll defend our democracy. I'll defend America. And I'll give all of you, keep everything I do in your service, thinking not of power, but of possibilities, not of personal interest, but the public good. And together, we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness, a story of decency and dignity, love and healing, greatness and goodness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that we answered the call of history. We met the moment. Democracy and hope, truth and justice did not die on our watch but thrived. That America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is what we owe our forebears, one another, and generation to follow. So, with purpose and resolve, we turn to those tasks of our time, sustained by faith, driven by conviction, and devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
Inaugural address of the 46th President of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden.
Okay, he actually discussed three major points in his inaugural speech, and one is politics, the call for unity. Then there's also the health crisis, remembering those who died because of COVID, and of course the revisiting of alliances or world alliances. At least there were other points raised during his
For
inaugural
example,
speech.
fake news.
Like fake news, right? What he
But
said there
a lot
was
of what he said centered around the need for unity.
Mhm,
He spoke of the need to start afresh, to listen to one another again, to hear each other, to see each other, to show respect to one another. Every disagreement is not a cause for total war. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. He will be the president for all Americans. He will fight for those who did not support him as much as for those who did support him. And he says the answer is not to turn inward, not distrusting those who do not look like you, worship differently from you. So a call to end what he said was an uncivil war pitting red versus blue, rural versus urban, and so on down the line. Show a little tolerance
a good
and
line
unity.
there. There's a good line there, Ed. And when he said that, we have to be better than this. America should be better than the bad things. He actually enumerated some of the bad things, including fake news or the facts manufactured and manipulated. So they should be able to defeat the lies.
And he talked about repairing alliances throughout the world and engaging with the world again. Maybe we can bring in our guest again? Yeah. Let's bring back Noel Malvar, and joining us is Jonathan Melegrito as well. Hi, and of course, John Algi Tolentino is over
Still
there.
with us.
Thank you for joining us. I suppose you guys were listening to the inaugural address. Noel, you first. What are your thoughts about the address?
I think that was a great speech. I think it met the moment. It was motivating. It was inspiring. He delivered it well. He's been getting better at public speaking. I think it was bold. He did not shy away from talking about the need for a truth, about addressing systemic racism and inequality. But he also did not alienate people with.
Who didn't vote for him?
Yeah, we didn't vote for him, or he didn't use like language that can turn off
The other side.
others. Yeah.
But do you think it will work? Of course, there is, I suppose, a segment of the American population that may be resistant to something like that. Jonathan, Melguido, what about you? What do you think?
You know, it's really significant that a week ago, this capital was assaulted by right-wing extremists. It was unbelievable that in the same place, this sacred temple of democracy, right-wing supremacists, white supremacists attacked this capital and threatened the lives of elected officials. So what President Biden said today in terms of the healing that needs to be done is really the challenge that faces America, because it's going to take a long time. There were 70 million who voted for Trump.
Yeah, 74 million.
Even if Trump is gone, although he said he'll come back in some form or another,
Yeah.
his supporters, 70% of his supporters, still believe that the election was stolen. So there's a great deal of work cut out for the new administration in terms of how to unite the country, given all this division and these wounds and this pain, given the pandemic, given the racial reckoning that's going on. I mean, there's formidable, overwhelming challenges that the American people are expecting the new administration to face. So let's pray for this new administration.
I suppose you could say that he was calling for healing on in both senses of the word, healing from COVID-19 and healing the wounds. You might even call them self-inflicted wounds. Jan Argy, what do you think?
Yeah, there was a survey just yesterday that says 73% of Americans think that the country is veering towards chaos, destruction, and so parang sinasabi nila that the Americans are pessimistic to the future.
That's 2/3 of the population, huh?
Exactly. And so whether you're on the left or on the right of the spectrum, of the political spectrum, hindi mo nakikita yung magandang kinabukasan ng Amerika. Yun yung sinasabi ng survey na yun. So I think the tone that President Joe Biden gave in his inaugural speech, kagaya ng sinabi ni Noel, it's really somehow uplifting. It's not trying to drag one side of the political spectrum na mali kayo, tama kami, but let's try to unite. And Joe Biden is known as that one person who could unite. I mean, I think as a candidate, his biggest asset is his empathetic character. And so, kahit nung panahon ni Obama, Biden was the only person who could reach out to the Republicans if Obama needed something done in Congress. So it's a good start. It's a good speech. It's a reach out to everybody. But gaya nga nasabi mo, it will not happen overnight. It's going to be a long journey for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Noel, what do you think? We're talking about it not happening overnight. How long do you think this is going to? How long it's going to take before things go somehow somewhere back to normal, if there is such a thing?
A long time. You can't even put a deadline on it because the United States is really, it's always been at the crossroads, but now it has to decide what it wants to be. Will it confront historical sins, or will it do so in a brave way? And how they can reconcile that with just American exceptionalism and the fact that the world looks to them as a leader. But I do think that after the year we had and after 4 years, people are vulnerable, they're exhausted, they're tired. And if there's this moment that we can just all agree that we're tired and we just have to try something to get us out of this mess, then that's what this administration has to leverage so that we're at least in a better place next year compared to last year or compared to this year. I think it's like baby steps. It's a lot of compromise. But I mean, there's only two ways to go, right? Either forward or we slide back into more ugliness, and we have to choose to go forward.
Noel, aside from the domestic issues that Biden discussed in his speech, he also allotted a portion about world affairs. You know, he said he will engage with that America should engage with the world again, and that the country should revisit its alliances. Can we get some thoughts from you regarding this portion of the speech?
Yeah, and he said something else that I thought was beautiful when he said, not by the example of power, but by the power of example.
For example.
Which
It
just
almost
puts
rings like
the whole,
JFK, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, actually. And it just puts like a whole compassionate approach or angle to it, where you're not talking about might and dominance, but you're talking about leadership and responsibility and being looked up to. And I mean, these are all words, right? And abstract. Everyone's in a party mood,
yes.
celebratory.
It's a roadmap. It's a roadmap for the next few years or months of his presidency.
They're good words. Let's see if they'll be followed by good deeds.
Yeah.
Yep, but the devil is in the details, and
The devil's in the details.
Exactly.
Yes.
it's like the actual policies and the actual day to day that will tell. Yeah.
Jonathan, ikaw, what do you think? We're talking about good words, hopefully to be followed by good deeds. Are you hopeful? Are you optimistic with what's happening? You know how it is.
I'd like...
that Trump won because of I suppose because people got tired of traditional politics,
Yes.
and that's why Trump won in a way. So, what do you think?
When you look at the big picture over the last 50 years, every time there's a convulsion in American society, whether it's civil rights, racial justice, and of course, in the past year, it's the pandemic. These convulsions always have a way of exposing the hidden fissures in American society. And in a way, I'd like to think of it as blessings in disguise. Not that I wanted the pandemic to happen or the racial riots to happen, all this reckoning, but in a way, it makes America confront it's itself. And there's a debate now whether this is really the America that people know, or there's just something about America that people don't know. But America is confronting the impact of this grand experiment when the changing demographics, right? When America is changing to be a non-white majority, the browning of America is a
The
threat.
browning of America.
The browning of America is a threat to that part of America that really resisted this diversity. So Joe Biden is the right person at the right time because, as everybody said, he's moderate, and you need a moderate temperament, to really confront this very heated, passionate divide that's really rending the structure of society. So yes, I'm optimistic because if we don't confront the past, just like we're doing now, we can never intelligently think about the present and plan for it accordingly. So in a way, this is a good transformation. It's really a struggle that hopefully will result in something positive, not just for the American people, but for all people in the world.
And we can't let go of our guests without tackling our Filipino-American brothers and sisters. Okay, kanina sinabi doon, pero medyo broad yung strokes doon sa pension, unemployment. So I just want to know, pupulsuhan ko na yung mga guests natin kung paano makaka-apekto ito sa ating mga kababayan dyan.
Exactly where itong mga programs ni Joe Biden. Well, for example, meron silang pinapropose na 2 trillion stimulus package again, di ba? And that would add up another $1,600 $1,400 dun sa nauna nang ibinigay na 600 additional stimulus checks para sa mga Amerikano. So, well, we know the Democrats are big on big government and on social programs like Social Security, pensions, and all. And these are contentious issues. And all of a sudden, we are seeing Republicans being, alam mo yun, nagiging mahigpit na naman sa pera. So, hopefully, it would pass on because all of the economists are saying that the stimulus is still needed. Although we're seeing some on the Republican side who's saying masyado nang tumataas yung national debt.
Okay, Noel.
Yeah. Although to Jan's point, sinabi lang nila ngayon paalis na sila or wala na sila in power. Ngayon nagko-complain ulit sila tungkol sa debt, pero sila naman yung gumastos the last 4 years. Pero another thing that Biden promised to do is to put a handle on the pandemic, which is super important for the Filipino Americans because a lot of them are in the medical field or healthcare.
Medical field.
Yeah, and just the fact that, so many Filipino nurses are dying at a disproportionate rate. And just the idea that someone will be in charge and will mandate masks and will get vaccines out, will figure intelligently how to communicate to the public about the science. Hopefully, talagang mag-trickle down yun to everyday lives of Filipino Americans.
Okay, Jonathan. Before we...
rebuilding the economy, obviously, malaking challenge yan. So, pero intertwined yung controlling the pandemic and rebuilding the economy because of the jobs, the employment, small businesses that have shut down. Maraming mga Filipino restaurants na nag-suffer dahil dito sa pandemic. So, nakikita ni President Biden. So it's so hard
Force of habit, ba? Force of habit.
Learned behavior.
Hopefully I'll learn to say President Biden. President Biden. So malaking bagay itong pandemic talaga kasi yun ang unang priority. At sabi nga ng Noel, marami tayong mga Filipino healthcare workers who are affected. Marami tayong mga Filipino businesses who are affected. So, yun ang talagang unang priority na dapat asikasuhin ng Biden administration to control the pandemic, rebuild the economy, and help the needy, yung mga unemployed, yung mga, very low ang kanilang mga minimum wage. So, talagang yun ang challenges ngayon.
Okay, and with that, we'd like to thank our guests, John R.G. Tolentino, former political science professor in PUP, residing in California now, ano po, Jonathan Melegrito of the National Federation of Filipino American
Oh,
Associations.
apologies, Jonathan. We forgot
To introduce
state
you
your-
later, a while ago. Thank you. And Noel Malvar, a Filipino-American senior researcher for U.S. think tank, More in Common. Thank you for
Maraming
joining
salamat
us.
for joining us.
Have a good night.
Buhay.
You guys
Mabuhay,
have a good day
mabuhay.
today.
Okay, back here in the Philippines. Well, hindi naman tayo umalis. Nakibalita lang naman tayo, no? The palace expressed optimism that President Duterte will maintain its close and friendly ties with the United States under the Biden administration. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque extends the government's congratulatory message to the 46th U.S. President. Roque is also confident that Biden will not be tough on Duterte's drug war. He also hopes that the new U.S. President will fulfill his promise to prioritize offering legal status to around 11 million illegal immigrants in the U.S., of which roughly 300,000 are Filipinos.
We are taking another quick break. This is our special coverage on the Biden-Harris inauguration. So keep it here on One News. Okay, we were just watching a while ago, and what we saw a while ago were pictures of President Joe Biden being congratulated by former US
Presidents,
presidents,
yeah.
Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Now, Biden has just so much to unpack as he forays into the Oval Office. How will he go about these unprecedented challenges? We watch this story.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you, Mr. Justice. But we've faced difficult times before in our history. I know we'll get through this one, but together. That's how we get through it, together.
Well, certainly it's a fraught moment at the very least, and virtually unprecedented.
We're coming for you! And you're not seeing it.
The levels of threat that are being reported in Washington, D.C. and around the country are of great concern. There's also concern about people not only not accepting the election results, but also not accepting government as an entity that they should be able to respond to. All of those make it very difficult for a new president coming in.
It wasn't anything you said.
Joe Biden certainly has his work cut out for him. That is a gross understatement. He is probably facing the combination of 1861 and 1933, Lincoln facing secession of states from the Union and an impending civil war, and Franklin Roosevelt facing economic collapse of a worldwide depression.
We need more action, more bipartisanship, and we need to move quickly. We need to move fast.
I think Biden has a chance to, be a 50+% president, right? I mean, Trump never broke 50% popularity. Biden has a chance to be a president for a majority of the country. He has a chance to restore the economy, to lead the fight against the pandemic, to make people feel liberated, like they can go back to school and the office again and travel. And then I think to take some steps to cool the temperature, right? To lower the temperature.
I think Joe Biden is well served to do what he's been doing. He ran an excellent campaign. He's talked about unification. His beautiful speech at Gettysburg during the campaign, I think, should be a blueprint for his inaugural address. Leave Donald Trump to others. Don't bash him. Don't bring him up. Let his Justice Department decide whether it will investigate him. Let Congress decide whether there are more investigations to be done. And then otherwise, let him go.
Right now, it feels like just Trump-induced chaos nonstop, and so, I think the political symbols matter, and Biden's ability to be inaugurated peacefully will send a signal that the country is not descended into civil war.
I think it's critical. Just as many would argue it was critical for the House and the Senate to come back and certify the Electoral College vote after the insurrection on Capitol Hill, it's also critical for this inauguration to take place in public and visibly as well.
be on the cross-off? It's hard above me because I'm just dirt the whole school. So let me find out what's going on here. Yeah, I'm with you.
Donald Trump has ended his last full day in office with the lowest approval rating. He is also bucking the tradition as he refused to attend his successor's inauguration today, making him the first president in 152 years to do so. Well, actually, no. If you consider Richard Nixon, he also had the same issue. So joining us now is Veli Salgado Dietrich Hall, a lead bundler of the Asian... I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Hi, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The lead convener, can we back up a bit? The Pacific, of lead bundler of the Asian Pacific Americans for Trump. Ma'am, I suppose you were listening a while ago to the inaugural address. Your thoughts po muna.
Actually, I did not have a chance. Kalalabas ko lang from a physical therapy, so I did not have a chance to look at it. So I'm inside my car. It's late for me to get back on.
Yes, ma'am. But can we ask you first of all, kasi you did campaign for Donald Trump. Your thoughts po on what has been happening the last 2 weeks and what is happening today. Do you believe that Trump won or lost the election? And moving forward, what do you think should be the next steps?
Well, there are mounting of evidences and videos and witnesses who testified for the fraud that happened last November. And what half of the population wanted to do to happen is to be heard. At least the Senate or the lawmakers should have given them a chance to formulate a plan to listen to half of the population in the U.S. who voted for Trump that were there during the January 6th event. But it did not happen. So because of that, there's no, the wider now between the Democrats and the Republicans, the animosity is wider because of that. Because the people who voted for Trump felt that they were not being listened to their concern. That was the specific request is for them to form a commission, a 10-day hearing, to really investigate in all the evidences that was shown. But they were overpowered.
Valley?
It did not happen. So, yes.
Valley, I will be asking you later about your reaction with the unity that the president called or said or remarked over his when he was doing his oath taking. Okay, but we will return with more questions. But we need to include one more guest so that we can have a more livelier conversation, Ed. Okay?
Yeah, so, but I didn't get your name. May I have your name, please?
It's Jovi, ma'am.
Hi, ma'am. And I'm Ed Lingao.
Okay, so Ms. Valley, just wait and stand by for more questions. But now, joining us is Rodney Salinas of the National Federation of Filipino American Associations. Hi, Rodney.
Yes, good afternoon from Washington, D.C.
I know. So I'm sure you heard or at least listened to the president's speech, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Your reaction?
Well, our new president, Joe Biden, has been calling for unity already from the very, very beginning. And this is exactly what we need as a country here in the United States, is to come together, especially after the domestic terrorist attack and insurrection on January 6th. There's nothing that we need more than real leadership, and I'm glad that today, on January 20th, we can finally call him President Biden.
Okay. Now, Veli, let me go back to you. Do we take it to mean that you personally believe that Trump really won the election until now?
Yes, I do.
But moving forward, Joe Biden has taken his oath of office, and Donald Trump has flown off to Florida. What do you think should be the next steps now, if only to heal the divisions that have been created in the last so many years?
then if Biden has a backbone, he should stop Nancy Pelosi and some of the people, the lawmakers there, to follow up on the impeachment for Trump. It's just like they're putting salt to an open wound for Trump, and that is not, we call unity. That caused more division and more anger for people who are already angry.
Rodney, what about you?
So
What
that
do you think?
remains to be seen. What?
Rodney, what
Say
about
that
you? What do
again,
you think?
please?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We heard you. Rodney, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, it's been made very clear, both by the American people as well as the various courts throughout different states, that Joe Biden is indeed our true and validated president of the United States, number 46. Former President Trump has lodged court case after court case, more than 50 of them throughout the various states, and every single one of them has lost. And there is a reason for that, because there's absolutely zero validity to any claims of fraud or any other type of malfeasance that has taken place in the November election. And what we need to do is forget about the November election and move forward. We have a pandemic of epic proportions that we have not seen in almost a century. We have people that are being evicted from their homes. We have a plethora of other issues with this vaccine rollout that was mishandled by the Trump administration. We need to move forward, and we need to do it starting today.
Okay.
As promised, I want to go back to Valley. Hi.
Hi, Valley.
Hi, Valley. Again, I just
Hey,
want
I'm
to...
here.
Yeah, I know that you told us that you were not able to listen to the speech of President Biden, and but I just want to relay some of the things he said about unity. He said that America, or he wants to be the president of all Americans, will be the president even of those who didn't vote for me. Evidently, didn't vote for him, but he's reaching out to everyone, the blues and the reds. Your reaction?
Well, that remains to be seen, because next week they're initiating now the formal official impeachment of Trump. If he cannot stop that, that means the unity that he's talking about is just full of words. It will not happen. The unity will not happen. And I fear personally that Biden will not stay long in that office. And right now, he will have a shadow president behind him. And because of his mental and physical and health capabilities, he's just like a paper tiger. So if he can stop what Pelosi is initiating and Schumer is initiating to impeach Trump for the second time, that will totally divide this country, and heaven forbid that there will be no uprisings among the people, half of the people who voted for Trump.
But Valley, Trump had already been impeached by Congress just a few weeks ago. What we have pending now for the next weeks would be the trial of Trump.
He was not given a chance to present. I mean, there was no evidences that he is supposed to be impeached. This is just some political ploy because they're scared of Trump. Trump is the only president in my lifetime that ever cleaned the swamp in Washington, D.C. And Biden is one of those scared, slumpy figure that really packed on the people's money, and we're going to be bankrupt pretty soon. He is opening the border. How many millions of people are coming to the border? And he promised them $11 million to support them while they're entering the country. My family, who is children of a U.S. veteran who fought on World War II, with a U.S. Congressional Medal awardee, are patiently waiting for 23, 25 years to come to the U.S. because they follow the rule of law. And here comes opening the border for people whom they cannot even read English. And we're trying to support them coming here. There's a lot of people here in the United States are hurting because of this pandemic. Why don't we focus on that instead of focusing and opening? Come on in. There's so many people who are jobless right now. I'm a small business owner. We have to close. We have to turn down people. Why don't we focus on that instead?
But
So
Valley,
that's pretty scary.
Valley, that trial will be the opportunity for Trump to present his case or present proof that that he's innocent from coaxing or leading that mob that went to the U.S. Capitol.
Why do we have to? Yes, he will have a time to present, but for heaven's sake, why does he have to do that? Why? Because they're too angry of Trump. Because of anger, because of Trump's personality. They don't look at what Trump delivered to the people. He walked his talk. He delivered more than any other presidents that I know in short period of time, despite all of the first impeachment that they're doing, because to hide what the other party have been doing. They're in cohorts with some of the government officials, which is so sickening. And that makes the people, half of the population, so angry.
Okay.
And if he really meant unity, then he has to stop that.
Okay. Rodney, what about you? You're in Washington, D.C., and I saw soldiers just behind you a while ago. Why don't you give us a bit of a tour, what's happening there, what the mood is, and I see soldiers now right behind you. I think they're National Guardsmen. Give us an idea what the temper of the city is right now.
Absolutely. So let me just say that I am in an undisclosed location for security reasons, so I'm not going to disclose that location. But what you do see behind me are National Guardsmen that are preparing meals that will be fed to the more than 25,000 National Guardsmen that are protecting not only our inaugural activities here in Washington, D.C., but our great city as well.
Okay, but we also understand that it's a highly unusual situation there. You have 25,000 National Guardsmen and as well as several active duty soldiers who are specialized in certain kinds of warfare, like chemical warfare and all that. How tight is the security?
The security is incredibly tight. It's the tightest I've ever seen it here in Washington, D.C. in the many years that I've lived here. And I can tell you that with more than 25,000 National Guardsmen here in town, that means that there are more troops, boots on the ground here in Washington, D.C. than there are currently in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia combined. And if that gives you any sense of the military state that is surrounding the United States Capitol as well as the entire Washington, D.C. area, it tells you something that we are ready for any type of possible insurrection or any other domestic terrorist attack that Trump and his allies may incite.
What about the rest of the country? If Washington is like that, because last week we were reading reports that the FBI has been issuing warnings that some armed groups might disrupt proceedings in the United States. I think not just in Washington, D.C., but as well in other capitals of the United States. Any news on that?
Yeah, I am aware that all 50 states capitals throughout the entire country are fully ready for any type of activity, insurrection that may be happening. They are heavily guarded with their own state National Guard installation. So we're ready for anything. And what we're trying to do by sending such a heavy presence of military and law enforcement, FBI, Secret Service throughout the entire country is we're trying to say that enough is enough. What happened on January 6th was an absolute atrocity, and it was started by none other than former President Donald J. Trump, and he needs to be held accountable for that.
Okay, I can see Veli's reaction over there. Veli, how do you explain what happened 2 weeks ago at the Capitol?
See, what is really sad, because we did not hear what the president said. The president said that you can go and show yourself peacefully. And you know what happened? We found out because several of the people, they are anarchists. Most 90% are anarchists, and they're Antifa thing, and they infiltrated the place. The
Veli, where did you get your
already-
information?
Well, it's all over. The FBI received a warning that there will be some anarchists who will be rioting that day, and they requested for the National Guard. Because of that, they did not show up. It seems like it's like a pre.
So Veli, you're saying that the people who
It's almost like a setup.
yeah,
It's
Veli.
almost like
So
a
Veli,
setup.
you're saying that the people who stormed the Capitol were actually anti-Trump. Is that it?
Yes. Yes.
But,
and they were wearing hats. There were several people, 10%
But
were
Veli-
persuaded to come in. But the people who were caught, they were number one terrorists in Utah, in Wisconsin. That's the same people who were there and caught. Please I suggest go ahead and review who are the people who were caught.
Yeah,
so
but
there were
Veli-
infiltrators there. There were infiltrators.
Yeah, but Valley, former President Trump, in his speech after that chaotic scene at the U.S. Capitol, said or told them to go home and that he loves them.
But
He
you have to
acknowledged
look
the
at-
fact that it was.
Please listen.
his-
Yes,
okay.
I understand what you said.
Yeah.
But please do listen when his speech before the riot started. See, that's it. The clips that were shown were not entirely the whole speech of President Trump. So please take a look and listen to them. Because other than that, people have lost the respect on the MSM because they look at it only half of it, not the entire thing. So I hope your entity will not do the same thing.
Well, we try not to, Veli. But what is your source of
Okay,
news?
let's just. What was your question
What
again?
what is your primary source of news, if not what you call MSM?
I go to Newsmax, I go to Fox News,
Okay.
and there's still some slanted news in there. It's not totally. Two of my children work for an intelligence group,
Okay.
government group, and I got that also.
Valley would like to thank you for joining us tonight. Or
It's afternoon
it's
now
afternoon there
in the US.
Thank you very much for joining
Yes.
us, Valley.
As well.
Please do listen to Trump's speech again before the riot.
Yes,
I
we
beg
will.
you, please do, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
As
Rodney.
well, we
Good
should
night.
thank Rodney. Rodney, who's been acting like some sort of a correspondent there in
Of
Washington,
course.
D.C.
It's like a stringer for us there, reporting from
Yeah,
somewhere
thank you
in
guys.
DC. Thank you very
guys
much,
for having
Rodney.
me. I wish I could show you more, but thank you very much.
Yeah,
Have a good day.
you two take care and keep well.
Valley, take care.
Okay, good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Okay.
Well, interesting points of view.
Yeah, they're from different camps, right? And Valley
Still
is a
interesting
known.
points of view.
I mean, we invited Valley because she's a Trump supporter, really. So we just really want to know her sentiment regarding today's events.
And she stands by this belief among supporters of Trump that the people who stormed the Capitol were actually Antifa, or anti-fascists who are against Trump.
But as I said earlier, and that trial, if it will push through, will be the perfect venue for Trump's camp to prove that he's innocent from accusations that he's behind that mob or chaotic scene at the U.S. Capitol.
Okay, we bring back our senior citizens. I'm sorry,
Senior editors.
Sorry, we neglected to introduce them properly.
Bedtime here, Ed. Jovi.
We neglected to introduce you properly. Our senior editors in One News and One PH. Of course, Patrick Paez is the head honcho, and Manny Magato is the desk editor for security affairs. There you go, the guy in the tie.
Ano ba? Napakinggan nyo ba yung pakipag-usap namin sa favorite namin si Valley?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really disturbing because I remember our professor from De La Salle, Renato De Castro, said earlier that there might be a division in the United States that could lead to a fractured country like Yugoslavia. And this was confirmed by Belly. No?
Yeah.
There's a
It's-
threat.
Although, but some context there.
I think it's alarming.
Yeah.
It's very alarming that we're hearing over and over again the word insurrection.
Yes.
I don't think there's been any other occasion in the United States, at least in recent memory, where that word has been used in a domestic setting, insurrection.
Not in 150 years.
Yeah.
Not since 1861 when
Civil War.
Civil War. Although just some context here, I suppose Yugoslavia's problems date really way back to the time when when the fighting was really so deeply rooted, which is why it's spilled over again when Tito died. So we're hoping we don't see the same thing here.
Hopefully. Balikan ko lang si
Well,
ano.
yung Yugoslavia kasi, ethnic and religious differences among people, no?
Yeah, especially with when the Turks and the Serbians fought several hundred years ago.
Yeah.
Kanina, habang nag-report si Rodney for us, parang report na talaga tawag kasi parang stringer natin si Rodney kanina. No? Mga tito, hindi man naisip na sana i-turn pa yung camera kasi ang ganda ng sana ng visual ano? Nung nasa likod ni Rodney. No? Dahil makikita natin kung gaano ka-tight yung security sa lugar.
Pero he was trying to be careful not to disclose his
Yeah.
location. So I'm not really sure why he was that careful. Pero
Baka mahuli siya.
akala ko nung may lumalapit na sundalo kanina, akala ko dadakpiin na siya eh. Or
yung pala, yung mga sundalo yun, magluluto.
They're preparing something.
Manimogs, it's up your alley, magluluto sila.
Anyway, Ed, may ano lang ako, no? Conspiracy theory.
Okay.
No? Kasi, you know, in the US, lahat ng presidents na na-elect ng ending ng year is zero, no? Like McKinley, Kennedy, Reagan, lahat yan na-assassinate.
Okay.
Office.
Well, si Reagan was assassinated, but he lived.
He lived.
Right?
Yeah.
Actually, he got assassinated. Yes.
Oo, so na-break niya, no? Pati si George Bush, 2000, di ba? There was also an attempt on him, pero nabuhay siya, no? So, I hope nothing happens to President Biden in his 4 years.
Well, you could see with the wide shot of Biden during his inaugural address, you could see the very, very thick armored glass surrounding the podium. But I suppose that's standard procedure. I suppose, even without an attack on the Capitol.
Yes. Okay, before we end this segment, of course, we would like to get your quick reaction regarding the inaugural speech of President Biden. Patrick?
Well, there was a call for unity, and that's expected well, we have to say that when Trump won and was inaugurated too, in his speech, he also called for unity. So there's nothing really surprising or unusual there. It's your stock call for unity from the incoming president.
Yes.
But I'd like to take a note from what our guest a while ago said about an impeachment being a divisive issue, at least from the point of view of Trump supporters. So I think that's something that the other side or people in Congress might have to consider the sentiments of how an impeachment of Trump will go down among his supporters.
Millions of supporters.
Yes.
Manny?
For me, the speech of President Biden, he has actually laid down the priorities and his agenda for the next maybe 100 days, and probably for his 4-year term of office. So what are these? These are more domestic in tackling the coronavirus problem, the economy, and uniting the American people and re-engaging with allies which were alienated by Donald Trump, like Europe and also in the Asia-Pacific and Indo-Pacific region, like Japan and Korea, because Trump was trying to squeeze more money from Korea and Japan in hosting the bases in their countries. So probably before Biden could look into the Philippine-U.S. relation, he will have to tackle the domestic issues and the big power rivalry, as well as the old allies in Europe and in Asia.
If I may add, Joby, one more thing. Beyond what was said in the speech, I think it's quite alarming or disturbing, to say the least, to see what we saw, which is what an inauguration of a U.S. president of the only superpower in the world. It was sad to see so few people in attendance. Of course, it is being done in the at the time of pandemic, but at the same time, in lieu of the usual huge crowds gathered, there's a huge armed contingent gathered around the Capitol, around the U.S. Capitol. So I guess that's a foreboding of things that may yet to come.
Yeah, and the crowd was replaced by 200,000 flags.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, before we let go of our titos, I
And
just want
at
to
least
say...
there's nobody contesting the number of flags, not like in 2016 when people were contesting the number of viewers, the audience.
Yeah, okay. I just want to
I
say...
think, Ed, this is the most watched inaugural, no?
Okay. Everybody's home.
Because everybody's online.
Everybody's home.
Everybody's zooming.
Anyway, I just want to say that I've been getting... I was kind of distracted a while ago because I was getting texts and messages from our social media mga suki sa social media, asking or telling us na bakit daw natin pinutol at nagsalita nung kumakanta na si Jennifer Lopez. So papakita na lang namin mamaya sa inyo yung kanilang clip sa ating social media because they're asking for that full clip anyway.
Kumakanta ba siya? Alam, sumasayaw lang siya.
Nandun si Jennifer Lopez and when we were discussing something else, bigla siyang dumating doon.
Okay. Our priorities.
Pasensya na mga kapatid. Alam ko marami kayong fans si Jennifer Lopez.
Okay. Thank you to our titos, Patrick Paez and Manny Magato, our senior editors here in One News and One PH.
Thank you.
For joining us tonight.
Nakipagpuyat kayo sa amin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
No.
Okay.
Okay. And that wraps up our special coverage on the Biden-Harris inauguration today, the 21st of January, 2021.
And for more news, please follow us on Twitter and like our Facebook page, One News. Visit our website, onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. I'm Joey Francisco.
Hindi tayo pakilala kanina eh.
Hindi natin pakilala.
Yeah, he's Joey Francisco and I'm Ed Lingao. Thank you and good morning.
Good morning.